Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, maybe the only show that shows you how to close the wealth gap in your own life with the man who's done it for many, our wealth coach himself, Tyrone French. Hey, Tyrone.
Yep, I'm your host, Tyrone French. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And if you value this content, go to closingthewealthgap.net, hit that follow button. Also, go to tyronefrench.coach and check out our Wealth Club. All the contact information is right there at that website. At any time, you can hit service. Your drop down menu will come. You'll find articles, calculators. But again, we want you to just continue to tune in and support this content if you like what we're doing. Now, I got my announcer and good friend Paul Roberts out there. Paul, can you chime in, buddy?
Let me tune in. See if I'm on the same frequency. I'm always slightly off frequency from you. I got to get tuned in. I got to really get on the same wavelength that you're at here, because you're always predicting things one, and you're always finding another way to look at things that I thought had been looked at 100 million ways. And that's today's topic: the financial consequences, unforeseen financial consequences of COVID. I didn't think there were any.
Here's the thing, and I get a lot of feedback from my clients, and that's where a lot of the ideas from the show comes from. I wish I could say I was just Bengali. I had all these original thoughts,
I think you are.
but it's feedback from people that are living this stuff every single day. And one of the topics that that came up was COVID
Yeah.
and the unforeseen, you know,
Financial consequences.
the final consequences, the residual effect, cause and effect of what's going on with COVID. And what I had to do was I said, well, let me take a look at the numbers and see if the concern is actually factual. And Paul, it blew me away when I
Wow.
saw these numbers, when I realized what was going on. And so the it's a direct correlation between COVID-19 deaths and probate.
I
And the
never.
probate cases are increasing rapidly because of COVID.
People died, didn't have a will, weren't expecting to die, and COVID came, killed them, and all of a sudden probate courts backed up.
Here's the deal. Out of the it's 97 million people in the United States came down with COVID.
Wow, that many? That's like 1 out of 3 almost.
One out of three, a third of one
Yeah.
third of U.S. population came down with COVID. There was a million deaths, 1 million deaths.
Wow.
And again, these numbers came from the CDD, from the CDC,
Right.
and the date on this is November the 3rd, 2022. So this is recent from the CDC. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. Just go right to their website. You can pull this up. But the hospitalizations, current hospitalization is 20,000 or close to 21,000. And the bottom line is the new cases are 273,000 new COVID deaths
But
or
Tyrone,
cases in the
everybody
United
wants to
States.
think it's over. We've taken the masks off. Joe Biden even sort of said it's over. Everybody, it's over. We won. And
So the
yet,
residual effect is you're going to have more probate cases.
yeah.
And so what do I mean by probate? Well, guess what? There was an article that came out in Investopedia. And I'm going to give the author, I'm going to name her and give her credit for this article. Her name is Julia Keegan. And the article was written March the 14th, 2022. And a lot of people don't know what probate is. So I'm just going to just go ahead and define it for you. Reading from this article, it says probate, a legal process that occurs when a person dies that involves the validation or administration of their will. A lot of people in the United States, matter of fact, the number is 60% of the people in the United States don't even have a will. So, in
Can I be
comparative terms, what
ugly
that
and
means is
admit that I don't have a
if you're
will?
in a room, if you're standing in a room and there's 10 people in that room, 6 people out of 10 don't even have a will.
I'm one of them.
So
That's
what
stupid.
happens?
That's stupid. But I don't have. I always think, yeah. One of those days. That's way off. I'm not going to die for 100 years. I'm a baby boomer. I'm in the Peter Pan generation. I'm going to live forever.
Yeah, and there's a secret, Paul, to uh, the 5% of the population that, and I'm talking about as far as people that have wealth. And we talked about this frequency. We talked about this mindset. But the one thing that all the top 5% have in common is that they're always thinking about their future self.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know that sounds really simple. I know it sounds like something that you know would just you just that sounds silly, but it's so important to long-term health. You should live your life like you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Live your life like you're going to die tomorrow because tomorrow is not promised to any of us.
Yeah.
But you want to plan your life as though you're going to live forever. And so
Say,
you have to
say that again. You live for today, but you plan
live
for
your
tomorrow.
life, live today as though you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow is not promised to us. So enjoy, be happy. Forget about all the hate. Forget about all of the this person did me wrong. Forget about all the animosity and all. Because again, when you're laying down on that gurney or on the pavement, none of that stuff is going to matter.
No.
So live your life today as though you're going to die tomorrow, but plan your life as though you're going to live forever. Because I can guarantee you, Tyrone French, the 21-year-old Tyrone French, wasn't thinking about the 59-year-old Tyrone French.
No, not at all.
And had the 21-year-old Tyrone French been thinking about the 59-year-old Tyrone French, when the information had come to me, it would have had a greater impact. Who's thinking about retirement when they're in their 20s?
Who's thinking about insurance in your 20s? I remember I sold insurance for about 6 months, and somebody said, well, why don't you get one of these? I thought, that's not gonna. I don't need this. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I'm 21. Forget it.
But here's the thing. A lot of people were fed just based on retirement. A lot of people say, well, you know what? You need to put X amount of dollars aside for your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And again, whether you're talking about a 401k, IRA, or whatever, yeah, some people will do that. But again, some people again that's not really thinking about their future self will opt out of it and think that you know what, I'll deal with that later. It's not a priority right now. I want this immediate gratification. You know, I want whether it's the car or the clothes or the travel,
Right. The house.
looking
right.
a certain way, acting a certain, I want that immediate gratification right now. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, you look up and you're 50, you're 60,
You're telling my life
70.
story. You're telling my life story. I can't be the only one. We're the aging baby boomers. We're always living in the moment, live for today, and too little. We think about tomorrow now and then. Now, we might plan for our kids' future, I think, better than our own future sometimes. I think we save and predict for them more than we do for us. Not everybody, clearly. There are lots of people. You're one of them. That's why you're the coach. That's why I'm the student. We continually need reinforcement to keep our eye on the prize and the goal, because you get caught up in the day to day and paycheck to paycheck and moment to moment, and tomorrow's as far as I can see.
You know what? And again, that's the narrative of again 6 out of 10 people that don't have a will. That's the narrative of a lot of people that don't have life insurance. That's the narrative of a lot of people uh, that think now they're too old to set something aside for retirement. So they're just thinking, well, I'm gonna work until I fall over because I don't have the assets or the resources to retire. But this show, Closing the Wealth Gap, is about solutions, and it's about getting people into activity and letting people know that it's never too late.
That's the
It's
message
never
I
too
need to
late.
hear, and we all need to hear, because I'm older. I got a few years on you even here, and I'm like, yeah, it's too late. I should have, I could have, but I didn't. And then it's like, I'll tell you the amazing thing. Somebody once told me, I asked somebody on another show, how much does it take to retire? And of course, they give you the standard answer, what's your lifestyle, and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, cut all that aside. Give me a formula. And they said, Well, let me ask you one question. I'll tell you the formula. How long are you going to live? I said, I don't know. My parents lived into the 90s. Maybe I'll live into my 90s. And I thought to myself, that's good news and bad news. The good news is I'm going to be 90. The
The
bad news
bad
is
news is
I'm going to be
you're going to be
90.
90.
The hell am I going
Exactly.
to do? I 30. If I stopped working at 65, I'm going to go for 30 years, 25 years. Wow. That's a sobering thought. And when my dad's generation, who my dad left this planet about 10 years ago, but when he died, he never thought, and my dad died at 92 or 3. I remember
Mm,
when he was born in 1920. I remember when he hit the year 2000, he turned 80. This was the grand prize. His wildest dreams, he never thought he'd live because nobody lived to be 80. So he hadn't
right,
planned to be 80. He didn't have the finances in place and stuff to be 80.
right. And you know what? But again, what we do, we on this show, we take away the myth.
Yes,
We take it. We just go right down to the bare
rip it
minimum. No,
off.
and I'm telling people, a lot of the plans that a lot of these salespeople, because again, when you're talking about a lot of your brokers, uh, real estate, whomever, stockbrokers, insurance brokers, these are salespeople,
Yeah, right,
and it's something that we don't like talking about. But they're salespeople, and a lot of times they're either working for a commission or they're working for a salary.
right,
And for me, my whole mantra was just like the Hippocratic oath the doctors take: do no harm.
right.
I don't want to lose people money. That's something that why I could never see myself sitting across the table from somebody that's you're dealing with their life savings, their retirement, their peace of mind, and all of a sudden they lose 30-40% of their value right before they get ready to retire. And you say, well, you know what? Just stick it out for the long term. Just the worst thing that you can do is pull out now. Keep going. And that's the same thing that they were preaching at Lehman Brothers before they shut the
Right up to
doors.
the day they shut the doors down. Yeah, exactly.
So again, a lot of this stuff, people know that this stuff doesn't work. So going back to that narrative as far as the formula, Paul, nobody on this planet can tell you how much money you need to retire. No one can tell you that. And I know
That's a
that's
stark
hard to
fact.
hear.
Yeah,
I know that's hard to hear, but I got 30 years in this industry. 30 years. And just like somebody, trying to pick stocks,
yeah,
Warren Buffett will tell you that there's no Spengali on that. There's winners and there's losers. Hopefully, you got a balance to whereas you got so many losers and so many winners to whereas it balances out. But I don't. You can throw a dart. You can put a bunch of stock listings on your wall and throw a dart at it and pick something and just invest and get it the long stay in it for the long term, and your return is probably going to be 10% in a 15 year. That's just how it works. And don't take my word for it. Look at the averages. The numbers are right there. So what I'm telling you is that nobody can tell you that dollar amount, whether it's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, based on how much money you need to set aside for retirement, because they honestly don't know what that number does. What a 1 million, 2 million, 5 million does is allow that investment firm to take that money, and now it's an asset under management, and they're going to charge you a fee.
right.
So let's say your fee is 4% of a million, that's a lot of money.
Every month they get it. Well, one of the
Whether
things,
you whether your investment increases or decrease,
yeah,
they're
right.
still going to get that fee.
Win, lose, or draw. So let's go back to COVID, and I'm curious what other things you found out about COVID. So probate's up. People weren't ready to die. They weren't expecting to die, and they didn't have a will, and now they have to go because in other words, if you died, somebody died tomorrow, and their children, their heirs, their brother, their cousin, whoever it is that's next in line to get that, can't just show up at the bank and say, "That's mine." There have to be has to be either on the account or a trust. Talk about trusts and stuff too. How many people do
Well,
trusts?
again, right now we're on the same wavelength because you read my mind.
Yeah,
But now, what probate does is validates or as far as a will, it authenticates the will.
right.
If you die with a will, meaning that, and again, I am not an attorney, I would recommend we provide
Clearly.
this show for informational and educational purposes, but get in touch with your attorney for the attorney that in your state and ask your attorney about probate, the pros and the cons. Familiarize yourself with the terms. And the worst thing that you can do, I mean, every financial book that I've ever read about estate planning has always advised people if you're going to get a will, if you're going to do a will, don't draft it yourself.
Yeah.
Get an attorney that's licensed in your state to draft your will because one word out of place can invalidate your will.
There you
One
go.
sentence can invalidate it.
But the key that people don't understand, and I've been through this a couple of times with mom, dad, aunts who talked about, is it takes a while to go get that access to the checking account, to get that house in your name, get that car into your name. All these things don't just happen. You don't just show up. Now there are ways around it. A trust is one. You maybe are on the bank account, so maybe there's some other things that you can do. But if you just walk in and Uncle Joe's gone, and Uncle Joe says, "I'm leaving you $10,000 or $50,000 or my favorite old car," you can't just go get it.
Here's the
Can't
thing.
register it. You can't get to the bank.
And again, this is the correlation between what COVID did and all these COVID deaths. Yes, we can talk as far as the bank account. You can have just like joint ownership with property.
Right.
Okay, there's certain limits. Like in California, if your estate is under $184,000, you can bypass the probate process
I didn't
with
know that.
with a probate affidavit.
Didn't know that.
You can do that. Uh, Even with the bank accounts, what you want to do is make sure that you're beneficiary on that bank account.
Yes.
And
that's
you
what
also have assets that actually bypasses probate, like your IRA, because the reason that it does this is because you have a named beneficiary.
right.
So your IRA is going to have a named beneficiary. Your life insurance is going to have a named beneficiary. Your 401k is going to have a named beneficiary. So just like at the bank, you can be named. Some people, husband and wives, they don't like having a joint account. They want to
Right.
have a separate account. But at the very minimum, you need to make sure that you're a beneficiary on that account. Now,
Right.
again, when we talk about probate, these are minor things. What we're talking about, when I talk about probate, especially in California, with the real estate prices being what they are,
Yeah.
if the minimum is 184,000, well, actually it's 184,500 that you can bypass probate, you tell me where you can find a property in California for $184,000. So my
Thinking.
point is, in California, if you own property and you pass away, uh, your estate is going to be probated.
And then there's attorneys' fees. You got to hire attorneys, and that eats up some of it in time. It might take some. Now it's backed up. Maybe it's a year to get through probate, or 6 months, or something. Yeah, it's ugly.
Well, normally it takes about 6 months, but it could take longer than that because again, it depends on the complexity of that estate. What I'm trying to tell people is that if when you have a will, you die, meaning that the term is you die testate. When you don't have a will,
That sounds
you
rude.
die
That sounds
intestate.
rude. Intestate. That sounds
Yeah,
like.
you die intestate. So all that is is just the difference between somebody having a will that's going to be validated, authenticated, and somebody not having a will, and then the court has to decide based on survivorship laws who's going to get what and where and when. It could be a long process, but it's going to cost the family money.
not
And
free.
these are resources. Again, if you don't have access to certain resources, like you said, sometimes that bank account could be frozen. Um, where are you going to get the money from?
Can't
And,
sell
and
the
again,
house. Can't sell the car. Can't get title to it. Yeah.
so you got this property. Okay. Again, let's talk about the worst case scenario. A single mom
Mm.
that probably went through a divorce the widowed, never remarried. The kids are grown. She's staying in the house. She passes away, and she didn't have a trust, and she didn't have a will. And that property, and again, let's assume that the property, being hypothetical, is worth maybe $700,000,
Mhm.
700,000 million bucks, and Now the family decides that they're going to go to court on this because there's no will. So now they're fighting over the silverware. They're fighting over the furniture. They're fighting over the jewelry. They're fighting over the watch. So now they go to probate. And now they have an expense because not only are we talking about the court fees, but we're talking about the attorney fees as well. And we're talking about, let's say if there's 4 kids, each one of those kids would have to have their own attorney representing them. When all that they really had to do was to get a living trust and bypass that
And how
entire
shameful, because
process.
mom had an idea what she wanted to do with all this stuff, but she didn't convey it, and so now it's free for all, and it can tear the family apart and eat up whatever's left.
Paul, my dad, my dad passed away in 2019,
Okay, sorry to
and
hear
my
that.
dad was old school, and he did not want a trust, didn't want one.
Didn't want one.
But when my dad passed away, and a few months, maybe actually about a few, maybe no more than a month after that, uh, my mother told me, "Okay, it's time to get a trust." Because I understand exactly what you're saying because I don't want to leave this mess on my kids and her grandkids.
Yeah.
Now, my mother loves her kids. Don't get me wrong, but she adores her grandkids.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's I can vouch for that. My two grandkids, they're amazing. My daughter's great, but my grandkids, whew.
So she didn't want to leave that legacy of a mess for her kids and her grandkids because she understands now generational wealth more so, I mean, now more so than any other time.
So why are we not brought up to think generationally? Now I'm from the Midwest, and many of my relatives are out in the farm countries. I didn't grow up in a farm. I grew up in the big cities, but a lot of them grew up in there. And there, they understand it. They've been working the soil for generations in some of these family farms. They've planted roots in these small towns, and there is a sense of continuity there that I don't think we have. We move around, we're here, we're there, and we don't feel that generational. Mom lives there, I live here, I was born over there. We're all over the place, many of us, but there is part of the country that understands this generational idea. I don't know why we don't.
It goes back to estate planning because when you're talking about the Midwest and things like that, you're talking about a lot of
Land like crazy.
land. And so the estate planning laws are really different based on even with estate taxes. So you're going to be dealing with estate tax, and a lot of times when you're trying to avoid that estate tax or exclusion, or
Right.
you're trying to make sure, like right now, it's around $12 million. If
Hmm.
your estate is under $12 million, you're not worried about. If it's under $12 million, you're not worried about estate taxes.
Right.
If it's over $12 million, then yes, you're going to be dealing with estate tax.
And many of these farms back there that have been passed down generation to generation, oh
Exactly.
my goodness, they're worth a lot of
Exactly.
money
So it's a different mindset, Paul. It's a different frequency. Whereas if you're in the suburbs and you're in the city,
in the city.
you're not really thinking about that. Because again, even you can ask people that you know right now, hey, what is the estate tax exclusion, the federal estate taxes or the gift tax exclusion? They can't tell you
No,
because it's not a concern. But I tell you what, if you're in rural America and you're dealing with a farm owner, they'll tell you to the penny what it
they
is.
know. Because they don't want to lose the farm. The farm has
Don't
been
want to
there
lose
for.
the farm.
You watch like that series Yellowstone, that dramatized thing. But
So what I'm
I know
saying is
those
that we
farms.
got to take this from a macro viewpoint, take it down to a micro, and that we don't want to lose the house. We don't want to lose the house. So if the house is 500,000 to $1 million, and we know that we can pass this down to the next generation, and we can use it as an income producing asset, that's generational wealth. If we can use this,
Amen to that.
if we can use it now, we can use this house to help pay for college education. Use this, and the word that I like to use is leverage. If we can
Leverage, yeah.
leverage this property to create capital, then that's working capital that we can use for other things. And subsequently, Paul, the trust can literally become a bank for the family.
See, you have to. We're out of time to talk about that one, but that's the future. How do you leverage things? I'd love to hear more about that. I'll give you a quick little funny story. I don't want to drag it out, but my grandson, I were out playing in the back in the field, and he saw this big rock he wanted to dig up. So we're pulling it, nothing. He got the bright idea. He didn't realize what he was doing. He got a stick and he stuck it under there, and suddenly when we pushed down on the stick, the rock popped out. I said, leverage. It,
Leverage.
and so the power of leverage, of using something to move something else, is a misunderstood. We don't think of it in terms of financial terms, but that's what you're saying. The house
You know,
can
even
leverage.
last week we talked about network marketing, which
Yeah.
a lot of people they hate that word. So just think about it as you're building a network. I mean, you think about Oprah Winfrey, she built
Oh,
a network.
yeah.
If you think about ABC or NBC,
OC Talk
CBS,
Radio. We built a
those are
network.
OC Talk Radio. Those are networks.
Right.
They're networks which are using leverage based on the host and
Yeah.
the guests. You're using leverage based on topics, and you're interjecting ideas that you would have never thought about, and now you're able to capitalize on those ideas. That's leverage,
Yeah.
and it's an asset. It's a source of information that you can use to create an asset with.
So one of the coaches thing you want to train us how to use leverage. I picture that training, how to use the leverage of those weights to build up your muscles, to how to leverage to lift something like my grandson did, to leverage to I have this which allows me to do that, to move
So
that.
let's use a living trust as leverage for generational wealth for your kids and your grandkids. Because what COVID exposed is that a lot of people were not prepared
Right.
for that death. And they didn't have a will, and they didn't have a trust. And the numbers, the cases that are increasing in probate court bears that out.
Never thought
The
of that.
statistics prove it. The articles prove it. And again, just go online and just Google it, and you'll see it. So don't put yourself in that position.
Don't be
What
a
I would say
statistic.
again, I am not an attorney, but everybody in the United States, I mean, and some people don't think that children uh, should have a will.
Yeah.
They don't think that kids should have a will. But you got to think about this, Paul. We're living in the age of the internet, and you got kids now that are making hundreds and thousands of
Oh,
dollars
yeah. Crazy.
off of the internet.
Crazy. Influencers.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so they basically they're in a position right now where some of these kids are making more money than their parents.
I'll tell you one of the plans that we did do when our daughter was younger, and it was disturbing to me when somebody raised this, but we did do it, is to have I don't know what you call it, but in your will, you say, if something happens to me, what happens to my little kids? Who's going to raise them? My brother, my cousin, my uncle. Because if you don't, if there is nobody, if you die in a car crash tomorrow, you and your wife, and or you're raising by yourself, and you got kids that are minors, they immediately go into foster care until somebody can figure this out. And you have to fight grandma they don't automatically go with grandma or your brother or whatever, unless it's in your will and specified.
That was a great point that you brought up. I mean, matter of fact, you beat me to the point, the punch, because I was going to go ahead. We only got a few more minutes, but I
Yeah.
was going to let people know having a living trust or having a will is not just about your assets.
Yes.
Like you said, it provides guardianship. And again, going back to that single mother who passes away, and she probably wants maybe a family member to raise those kids, but no, the state is going to determine that unless you have a will to specify guardianship.
Exactly.
Another thing about having a trust, a living trust, is that it provides conservatorship. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say if you're incapacitated, and again, you can't even perform your activities of daily living. In your living trust, you've already designated who's going to be the conservator of your affairs, of your estate. And here's the thing: a lot of people will go into they'll have an illness, and now they have to go to a convalescent home or whatever, and they're convalescing. And let's say if it took 3 months, 6 months, whatever, however long it took for you to get back on your feet, but there was nobody there that you designated to have maybe a power of attorney for your finances, and none of your bills got paid. Nothing was taken care of. Now you're well, but you came back to a financial nightmare.
Yes.
So your trust alleviates all of that. So it's not just about protecting your assets or protecting your property so that you don't go through probate. You're designating a successor trustee, a beneficiary. If something happens to you, conservatorship, guardianship, all of those things
And what are
are
we talking
outlined in
about?
that
Is it
trust.
$1,000,000 to do a trust? $10,000 to do a trust? What's it cost? $1,000?
No, no. I mean, you can get a decent trust, Paul, for about $1,000.
See?
For about $1,000. You can get a trust with all the whistles and bells for around $5,000. Depends on how you want that trust drafted. But I'm telling you, the cost of not doing the trust could be thousands of dollars. Thousands.
More than you want to calculate.
The average probate cost is 8%.
Phew.
So you put that 8% based on what is your property worth. Let's say if your property again is worth $700,000. What's 8% of 700,000? When you could have just spent maybe $1,500 or $2,000 to take care of that whole situation.
Words to the wise. Keep telling us, keep reminding us. Coach, keep pointing us, keeping our truth in front of us here. How do they reach you if they want to find out more about any of this stuff here?
Again, I want you to go to closingthewealthgap.net and again, follow us, support us. But also go to tyronefrench.coach and just click on services and you'll find a drop down that will specifically, there's a video there that literally talks about living trust.
Mm.
And again, if you want to get a trust, I can help you with that too. But again, we want to start the dialogue to whereas you can talk to your attorney, talk to your advisor about setting up a trust or at least a will. And again,
you're my advisor. I don't have any
it's
advisors.
affordable.
I just got some crazy cousins. I don't know. You're the advisor here.
Well, again, we just want to get you started. If you don't seek help, if you don't get help from us, what I'm saying is get help from somebody.
Somebody. Well, I hope that we've all learned from somebody special here today. Tyrone French, we appreciate you always. You never give up on us, even when we shock you and say, I didn't, I know I should. You don't scold us and say, well, get out of here. You're the coach. Okay, let's regroup. Let's do it again.
Well, I tell you what, final word, here's my final thought.
Yeah.
Everybody just, pick up, everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's got one of these things. You got a cell phone. Pick up this cell phone and just text Tyrone French to 36260. You're going to have my app. You're going to have my entire business in the palm of your hand. And just click on where it says Living Trust. And if you want to contact me, there's a button that says contact. Just hit that button. I can email, we can text, we can talk, we can Zoom. We can get this done.
And you can be prepared. Thank you, sir. Prepared. All right. We prepare for next week. I want to hear more about leverage one of these days. How to use leverage. What is leverage? And what you've talked about insurance as leverage. I never thought of a living trust as leverage. The house can be leverage. Your life, I said earlier, life insurance. You can get something that allows you to get something else. Like
even
credit.
Your IRA can be leveraged.
There you go.
So yeah, great stuff. It's a powerful subject, and maybe we'll bring that in. We'll acclimate that maybe probably next couple of shows.
Okay, because nobody,
most
of us never think about leverage. We think about just what have I got, and that's it. I hold it. I got this. I got this house. I got this bank account. I never think of how I can use this to get that. That's the next topic.
Get that will, get that living trust, and focus on leveraging.
Got it. See you next time.
Thanks, Paul.
That's our show for this week. Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, the only show that shows you how to take control of your financial future. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net. Okay, sir. I got to run. I got a 2 o'clock here.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I like how you picked up on leverage.
Yeah, I just because you say something and then it starts resonating. I think, wow, again, all these things, thinking of the future, having leverage, having generational wealth. Those are not topics we talk about much as ordinary people, ordinary or everyday wealth for ordinary people. But the wealthy sure talk about it. They have plans and trusts and the future all mapped out.
But again, most baby boomers, are not going to do it for their kids because they don't really like their kids. But like I said, they adore their grandkids.
You know, there is something to that. I adore my
Yes.
grandkids. That's the truth. That maybe it's the motivator.
Hey, we may have to change this time slot too, Paul. Think about it.
I'll tell you what would help me if we did it at noon back again, because the show I had at noon is left, and now I got an open slot back at noon.
Let's do it
here.
at noon.
Okay, that would help
Okay.
me because I got an 11 o'clock, and then it would also we could tail over some of that 11 o'clock audience. Maybe they talk about book publishing. Maybe it's not, but it's there'd be two back to back rather than there's a gap right now where this other show.
I mean, you begged me to take the 1 o'clock. So
Yeah, because this only time this guy could do the show, and then he flaked. He did it for a few months, and he flaked out. So
see, okay, we'll do it 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock starting next week.
And again, we're on the same wavelength, Paul. Because again, you were thinking about it. You know that'll help you out. I just happened to bring it up. Boom.
Perfect.
There it goes.
Noon.
Okay.
See you at noon
Take care.
next week. All right. Bye.
Bye.